Shalom, party people, and welcome to the 12th C. It is December 3rd, 2022, day 63 of 75 hard for me. It was, I don't even know how cold it was at 6:30 this morning when I ran my 3 miles in 30 minutes, abysmally slow. I know it was very cold, and I was basically bouncing up and down and running in the wind. I had very little desire to get out of bed and run. I did sleep in a little bit since it's Shabbat, and it is what it is. Tomorrow is another day and can try to run harder and run faster and make it matter. This morning was more of going through the motions than anything else, but I guess what's important is getting out of bed and going and doing instead of staying in bed and sleeping. Walking, stretching, all that good stuff. Photo gallon weighed 198.4 pounds. Yeah, 198.4 pounds this morning when I stepped on the scale. I had a pancake and a waffle with peanut butter and some banana. I had 4 slices of medium pizza for lunch, and it was like a Domino's medium pizza or whatever. And then I had what was it? Chicken pot pie, or no, it was turkey pot pie. Had that last night for Shabbat dinner and then had leftovers of that tonight. Also had some spinach and carrots, or no, just spinach and some grapes here and there. I did eat some leftover things off my son's plate that he didn't finish. It was like half of a pancake and I think a block of cheese or something. All in all, I need to not scavenge. I think I did relatively decent today and not, super pigging out, but I did have, probably a little bit more food, especially at dinner time, than I needed. So that's just something to be on the lookout for, but I wanted to eat like all day today and tried to just kind of keep my mind in other places. Let's see, did the rest of Ephesians, all of Philippians, and then the first 2 verses of Colossians, although when I sent it out to my text group, I'm pretty sure I said collisions instead of Colossians, because on the day in kindergarten when they were passing out the ability to spell, I missed that day. I don't know if I was out sick or my parents just decided that they had better things for me to do, but I always ran into that situation of hey, how do I spell this? Well, look it up in the dictionary. Well, I'm asking you because I don't know how to spell it, and I'd have to know how to spell it to look it up in the dictionary. So we're in a catch-22 situation on that one. But yeah, 100% on me. I just don't spell things very well. Autocorrect is sometimes my best friend and a lot of times my worst enemy. And I even will pick how I phrase sentences when in written format because I don't know how to spell certain words. So little tidbit trivia for you about me. I have finished Killing Sacred Cows by Ted Gunderson, or not Ted Gunderson, by Garrett Gunderson. Don't know why I was thinking Ted Gunderson on that one. Yeah, Garrett Gunderson, Killing Sacred Cows. Finished that one. All in all, thoughts on that book. It is an interesting read. There's some things that are nothing new, and then there's a few things that not a whole lot of people are talking about. I had kind of harped on it a little bit yesterday when I was talking about some of the insurance things. I'm not a Dave Ramsey-ite in the sense of probably something that I seriously disagree with Dave Ramsey from Financial Peace University on is credit cards. Dave Ramsey is like 100% against credit cards. I believe if you pay the credit card off in full in the month that you use it to where you're not accruing any interest, I believe that credit card is an excellent tool. And if you know how to use it and you can use it well, it's great for that. I think it is fantastic for short-term emergencies where you need to make a kind of large purchase kind of sudden. And it makes it so. Here's my logic. Say you have an appliance break in the house and you need to go replace that appliance to maintain things working well. I think a high limit credit card for going and replacing what you need to replace. It's so much easier. Number one, with a credit card, you have a lot of fraud protection built in. So if someone compromises your credit card number, it is so much easier to cancel that and get things taken care of. Whereas on a debit card, it's kind of a nightmare if that number becomes compromised. So, almost as if you need a couple of credit cards, one that's really high limit, that's only for big things, that you pay off in 1 or 2 months. And I really don't believe in going further than 2 months on it, because the interest on credit cards is something that I do not like. The other situation, it would be like kind of a daily purchase credit card. So that way someone doesn't have direct access to your bank account. And then I think there's something to be said for having a credit card for when you're out of town that isn't your regular credit card stuff. But, kind of having some activity on it so it's not just dormant. I don't really believe in spending more than half of what your credit limit is on those credit cards, just because I don't want to affect scores on those kind of things. But I'm a big proponent in paying off the credit cards the month that you spend it. So that is where having an emergency account that will cover whatever those emergency expenses are. But if you're getting cash back or you're getting points or whatever, that's a measly percentage that you wouldn't be getting back using a debit card or writing a check or paying cash for that matter. So that's something that I severely disagree with Dave Ramsey over, because Dave Ramsey will tell you not to use credit cards. And there are some people who have no business using credit cards because they don't understand the concept of that money on the credit card is real money that is their responsibility. So, at the end of the day, I guess it does come down to the individual. But Garrett Gunderson, in his book, Killing Sacred Cows, his one that I'm not wholeheartedly on board, but I'm not necessarily against either, is his discussion on debt, and that debt is a tool. And I do believe that debt is a tool. And if you, because he doesn't even call it debts, he just calls them liabilities, which I do believe in liabilities and assets. And what he calls debt is when it's something that you actually can't afford, which I would kind of agree with that, because debt is definitely something you can't afford. But the all in all, where I kind of fall is that there is certain debt that in the short term can be useful if you know exactly what you're doing and you have a lot of safeguards in place, and you are a very shrewd steward of your money. But I am not the biggest fan of debt, like I've talked about in the past. Paying off my last little bit of college, that was an instant $500 a month raise that I did not have to ask anybody for. Paying off my wife's car, when we pulled that money and wrote that last check, that was an instant raise we did not have to ask for. And it's not like it was huge money, but well over $200 a month that we did not have to ask anybody for. It just was there. That is money that we can much better use. You look around on some of the interest rates that you're getting. If you can get a real low 1 or 2 or 3% loan, and you can go make 4 or 5 or 6% interest on your money at the exact same rate, then maybe it's more advantageous to make a little bit higher percentage interest in one area over the other. But I would also argue that if, say I'm making 7% interest somewhere, and I'm paying 4% interest on something else. Well, what I'm making 7% interest on, in my opinion, better have more money in it than what I'm paying the 4% interest on for what I owe. So if it's the same $500 and I'm making 7% interest on $500 and I owe 4% interest on $500, same either way, maybe we can argue that I'm making more money than I'm spending over here, and we can allocate resources to where one pays for the other, maybe. That being said, if I owe $10,000 and 4% interest keeps accruing on it, and I have, $1,000 and I'm making 7 or 8% interest on that 1,000, the amount that I'm making is not servicing near enough to take care of the big stuff. So I would argue the Dave Ramsey snowball effect in that situation. So it is what it is, but I'm not the biggest fan of owing people money. If you've got a vehicle that you need to go from point A to point B, I would say, I'm not a big fan of owning expensive vehicles. I'm not a big fan of owing exuberant, like the fact that people will have an $80,000 car note for one vehicle just baffles me. It's something that I wholeheartedly would tell someone not to do it. We can argue semantics the higher and higher it goes, but or get a vehicle that runs. There's some really, really low dollar affordable vehicles that are out there that run very well, that are built like tanks, that the maintenance is not very expensive on at all, and they hardly ever need maintenance anyway. And a lot of times the most expensive things you'll ever do to them is change the oil and put new tires on it, and eventually change the transmission fluid every once in a while. Like specifically a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla or a Camry or a Honda Accord, those things are built like tanks, especially you go back a few years on the models on them. You shop around, find the ones that are in between model year changeovers, so that way you don't have any really weird, crazy problems on them. And they just run forever. Like, it's not uncommon to have a Toyota Camry that will go to 400,000 miles on it. So, arguably, yeah, you need a truck for certain things, but if you're just on paved roads the whole time and you don't need to haul anything, we have, in the vehicle behind me, we have loaded up, me, my wife, and our 2 kids, and enough stuff to go for 2 weeks, all of us not having to do any laundry at all. And we're talking like life support for babies and a toddler, and that includes a method for them to sleep somewhere, that includes a method for them to have everything they need for showers, everything that they need for food. We put a lot of stuff in a vehicle this small behind me. So now it was tight and it was part of it, but we're talking 8 hours one way on a trip just to be there for like a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then come back. So it's doable, and we're also talking a lot of hotel stops too. So it's not like, we're always hanging out in one place. There's way more space in a Toyota Sienna or a Honda Odyssey, I can tell you that for sure. But I also see the price on those things, and I would rather have a low note that owe very, very little, pay it off very, very quickly, and we're talking buying something used, pay it off very, very quickly, and then instead of having an $80,000 note on something and taking 6 years to make really high payments, or taking 8-10 years to make really high payments and pay something off, it doesn't sit well with me going that high versus saving a lot of money on the front end on something that does run. So my 2 cents for what it's worth. So yeah, I'd say I probably fall somewhere in between Garrett Gunderson and Dave Ramsey on debt, liabilities, things like that, because I would say pay them off as quickly as possible, so that way then you have extra. Whereas Garrett Gunderson will tell you is as long as you are making more money by having that item than not having that item, then, because Garrett Gunderson talks about cash flow, and I'm definitely getting into the weeds on a lot of this stuff, and I do agree that having good positive cash flow is more important. And he also argues that instead of looking for ways to save to $1 million, look for ways to expand your potentials. So always looking for additional revenue streams that are sound investments, that are wise, And he encourages you to do it in things that you know and understand. Just because I got a buddy who's trading stocks left and right doesn't mean that I need to go follow in that buddy's, footsteps. I could very, very easily take knowledge that I have in key areas, because number one, I've done a lot of jobs, so I have some insider knowledge on several areas. I could use that to my advantage. I could use hobbies that I like and learn how to make them profitable, so that way those hobbies will not be hobbies anymore, but can be businesses that pay me. So those are things that I definitely agree with and would like to pursue. So it's given me some things to chew on for sure. And I don't think it's a bad book, and something that the idea of going through and finding some things that can really matter. I liked what Mr. Gunderson had to say about insurance. I don't wholeheartedly agree with everything behind it, but I do think that there are some good whole life policies out there that you can have some real cash value in. That those will definitely be better served vehicles of wealth building than some of these retirement plans that are out there that are just ways to steal people's money, in all honesty. I would say his first chapter on the finite pie, his second chapter, or not his second chapter, but his kind of middle of the road chapter on insurance, and then his, I guess his chapter on debt are like the three chapters that really make up his book, because everything else is just kind of not necessarily fluff, but everybody else has got the same information. But yeah, Killing Sacred Cows, if you're interested, it's an interesting book, but not something that I just wholeheartedly am on board with. But next book that I'm going to be doing is going to be Resistance Operating Concepts. I did get my hands on a physical copy that is mine, so I'm going to be going through kind of slow on this one and making some notes. I will be shocked if I finish this one faster than 75 hard. I'm going to be probably 10 pages at a time. I don't think I'm going to speed through this one, especially since it's mine. All in all, 63 days in, and just trucking along. Some things that I definitely need to improve on is continuing to watch what I put in my body. I'm beginning to formulate how I'm going to do my no holds bar next round of 75 hard. Continuing to decide how I'm going to do the diet for that one. It is going to be stricter, and it will definitely be focused on portion control just as much as what goes in. It will be focused on how much goes in as well. I'm formulating my exercise plan for that. I will enjoy the back half of December just to kind of slack off a little bit. I'll still work out as much as I can, but not, force myself, and definitely not lose too terribly much sleep over some things. That's another thing that I need to be really diligent on is focusing on what time that I go to bed, so that way I can wake up, energized and refreshed, and not, be ready to crash the second I walk in the door after work. That has been a struggle in the past on 75 hard stuff, has been I'm working out so hard and so often that as soon as I get home, I'm dead to the world for a little bit. That's something that I would like to avoid, because that's really just stealing time from my family. So I don't want to take time away from them. All in all, that's a whole lot of information dump, and mostly me just rambling a whole lot. I'd give Killing Sacred Cows a reasonable recommendation. If you've read a lot of finance books, this one's a little different. If you haven't read any, this one is more of making you think and less of specific strategies for specific things. So, it is what it is. We definitely need to take care of our finances. We also definitely need to watch, what we are doing, how we are carrying ourselves, so that way we can continue to be disciplined in what we do. Go do hard things.